Good evening, and welcome to the Book Club of California's Southern California program titled Bowlarama, the Architecture of Mid-Century Bowling. And thank you for joining us here at Pasadena Heritage, this beautiful and historic Blinn House. We love having our programs here, and we're happy to share this space with you. My name is Kevin Kosick, and I'm the Executive Director for the Book Club of California, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all and host the program this evening. For those of you that are new to the Book Club of California, we are a nonprofit, member and donor-supported organization that is dedicated to preserving and promoting the history of the book and the book arts. Oftentimes we do that with a focus on the history and the literature of California and the West. The Book Club publishes limited edition, finely made books. We have a scholarly journal, and we have keepsakes for our members. We host a year-round series of programs, like the one this evening, on topics including fine printing, design, typography, bookbinding, collecting, and so much more. Now, if you're not a member of the book club, or if your membership has lapsed, and you're interested in what we do, please consider joining our century-long tradition. Our membership dues are modest, the benefits are many, and we simply can't do the work of the book club without the support of our members. So I encourage you to go online to bccbooks.org to find out more, to join, or to donate. Let me catch my breath. Okay, tonight's program is titled Bowlarama, the Architecture of Mid-Century Bowling. And our speaker is Chris Nichols. Chris Nichols is a longtime preservationist and senior editor at Los Angeles Magazine. For many years, he worked with the Los Angeles Conservancy Modern Committee, including a term as chairman. In addition to creating tours, exhibitions, and lectures about historic Los Angeles, he has advocated for endangered buildings all over Southern California. His books include Walt Disney's Disneyland for Taschen, The Leisure Architecture of Wayne McAllister, and he writes the Ask Chris column in Los Angeles Magazine and has served on the board of Hollywood Heritage. Tonight, Chris is going to talk about his book, Bowlarama, the Architecture of Mid-Century Bowling. A little bit about the talk. The obsession of a post-war nation, bowling is more than just a sport or a hobby. It became the ultimate modern lifestyle for Americans savoring the boom years that followed World War II. Bowling alleys were modern palaces. Companies constantly aimed to outdo each other, whether competing for the most spectacular architecture, as you'll see tonight, the most luxurious lanes, as I'm sure you'll see tonight, the snazziest bowling balls, which I know many of you probably have, or the most exciting refreshments that they could offer, like the ones we're offering this evening. Now, if you have any questions for our speaker, please wait till the end of the presentation. We definitely will have time for some Q&A, and I'll come back up and help do that with you when Chris is done. So now please join me in welcoming our speaker, Chris Nichols.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Book Club. So here's a couple of visual aids. Los Angeles Magazine is where I've been for the last 25 years. We're on stands now with our cover story on TMZ, the celebrity news website. This is a little bit hard to find book that I did the essay for. The Great Crump Presents His Magic, about a wonderful Disney artist named Rolly Crump who painted naked ladies and drug posters on the weekends. And here's the latest, Bowlarama. So, my friend Sven Kirsten, who writes about tiki culture, said you've got to up front with all the eye candy. So, we're just going to kind of go through a welcome to this incredible lost world. I worked on this book for 10 years. It came out of an exhibition I curated at the Architecture and Design Museum on Wilshire Boulevard. This is the Kapu Kai in Rancho Cucamonga. I broke into this building in 1992 with my friend John English, and a photo of that was in the Tiki History of Tiki slideshow I went to recently, which I thought was pretty funny and pretty awful. But wild palette that these local architects, and most of these are local because California was the birthplace of this movement, are all over the place. And they all share one thing in that they are dynamic, Googie style buildings that catch your attention from the road and bring you in, like the coffee shops, like the motels, like the drive-in theaters, like the places with big neon signs. This is in Whittier. It is now an Aldi supermarket. This is still opening and in functioning in San Mateo, Northern California. And the further I dug and the more I was able to uncover about these places, I was absolutely flabbergasted because I grew up with the last of these falling apart, with seeing them like big lumbering dinosaurs at the last little water well, you know? They were on their way out, and they looked like hell, and they were stinky, and they had the rental shoes and all the hot dogs and all the kind of devolved into kind of sad places, a lot of them. But when I saw them in 1962, fresh and beautiful and new, I felt like I had uncovered a lost tomb or something. This is in Lancaster, and it has all this custom art. It's spectacular and great, and it's just been absolutely sandblasted by the winds of time into a bland Bolero, which is the company that operates most of the America's bowling centers today. This is the one that's in the cover of the book in San Diego, off of Hotel Circle, off of that Highway 8 in San Diego. Demolished 1 year ago for a Home Depot. This was the largest in the country, designed by an LA firm. This is in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. It has something like 116 lanes, but in addition to the number of lanes and the actual sport of bowling, which I barely talk about in this book, it's mostly about the art, the architecture, the culture, the dining, the entertainment. This one is now a Burlington coat factory. This is a photo that I spent 10 months trying to get from the Walt Disney Company. This is the one that Walt Disney invested in Denver, Colorado. And I just love the family running to it, and the American flag, and the Sputniks, and it's just so thrilling to try to capture this moment, this strange moment when America became obsessed with this game, with this sport, and the incredible resources that went into building these outrageously complicated and decadent pleasure palaces that people would call the country club of the people, that happened at this great moment in the 1950s when there is a huge explosion of the middle class, when more people are living at a higher standard than ever before, when everybody could afford 2 cars and a house in the suburbs. And so when you see these stories about these people building these places, it was like an arms race to outspend each other and to out-lavish each other. This is something that my co-author Adrian Biondo found, this original illustration by Martin Stern Jr., an architect who sort of reinvented Las Vegas in the 1950s, for the Sepulveda Bowl in the Mission Hills area. All I had was a lousy 3rd-generation Xerox from the University of Nevada archives, but Adrian went to the Valley Relics Museum and found this original painting of the place, the presentation drawing, the presentation painting that sold the idea to the owners. This is now Ross Dress for Less. After tremendous advocacy effort, the character-defining features were restored, but it's a Ross Dress for Less. This one is by the esteemed African-American architect Paul R. Williams in San Bernardino. This one is in Glendale. It's now Walt Disney Imagineering. And you can kind of see that there is a language to it, and there is this sort of action and this movement to all these places. And they're all sort of like an atom just spinning around in motion all over the place. This is one near Chicago. I think it's in Skokie, Illinois. Designed by Richard Barancik, who was the last living monuments man that saved all the art treasures from Hitler. And when he was younger, and when he was older, in 1959, 1960, he did this. He spent half the year in California, half the year in Chicago, and was influenced by LA architecture. This is Covina Bowl, which was my childhood hangout, my grandparents' favorite place to get a Monte Cristo sandwich, and just an awesome 1956 Egyptian-themed modernist bowling center. This closed about 10 years ago after we had a big 60th birthday party for it. And was in danger. Eventually, a preservation solution was found. It got landmarked, and it has found new use as 6 billion condominiums. But the bowlings, the preserved portions are empty. And so they're looking to sell that off. But it was beautifully restored in a very serious way, numbering the rocks, putting them all back together, having consultants there every day, monitoring the construction. The sport of bowling is ancient, perhaps dating back before mankind. Here's some caveman bowling. There actually is an archaeological record that would indicate that this was a real thing.
No.
There is a bowling kit in an ancient Egyptian tomb that was found. The Romans did it. Henry VIII did it. It became a huge fad in Europe during the 19th century, and especially with the Germans who brought it here. And in New York, and in saloons, and in the East, it's played in kind of, it's a bar, it becomes a bar sport. It becomes a way to get you to spend money at the bar. It's kind of a dingy, greasy, dirty spittoon manhole where you go and you like just these gross places that I found these awful pictures of. Of course they try to play it off as if it's some elegant thing, but mostly they look like that. And during the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s, it's always about the booze. Here's a wine room next to the bowling alley. And there's these horrible pictures. They're coming up in a bit. So I've got to show you. But this guy, John Moses Brunswick, starts getting, the idea that he should be building entertainment things instead of, carriages, which he had been building. And so he starts getting into bars, literally building bars, back bars. There's one of these in the Magic Castle today. There is the Lily Langtree, the Oriental, the Persian, and all these sort of themed carvings. But this is the slide I wanted to show you before. These poor children were working as literal human pin setters, picking up the bowling pins and putting them back. And that was a job that people have come to this talk and said, oh, I was a pin setter, my dad was a pin setter. But what an awful, horrible thing this must have been. Because here's a picture that was taken by like OSHA at 2 a.m. showing these poor kids in this dangerous situation. It's kids, it's itinerant workers. Somebody told me that they had kept a cot in the back with a fifth on it to try to keep workers. And this skeevy guy doesn't look like he's, upstanding citizen, but he's loading up one of these things here. Like, there's stories about one of these guys like bonking the other one over the head with a pin and killing him and not remembering it, putting love notes to women in the holes, shouting at people for being bad players, and it was just not, conducive to a family-friendly environment. But by the 1930s, at least in Hollywood, this is at Sunset and Vine. The NBC building is now a Chase Bank building, if you know this corner. But starting to get, kind of a little classed up. Harold Lloyd says it's cool to bowl, and Harold Lloyd actually was a kind of a pro bowler for a while. And they start building these kind of Art Deco and streamline and more lavish and less gross saloon joints throughout California. This one in San Diego, demolished around 1989 after a big preservation battle. After World War II, they start to become sculptures of light and glass, and they float in the air. The one on the left in Pacific Beach in San Diego, the one on the right in Pomona. And so something's obviously happening. They're getting more lavish, they're getting more elaborate. They're starting to turn the corner from what had been to what they were going to be. And the thing that really makes it all possible is the automatic pin setter machine. When you have this, you don't need that guy in the back that may or may not show up to work, that may or may not beat the other pin setter to death. And you have this machine to do it, run by a robot. Mr. Pin Spotter is back there. And it allows you to be open 24 hours a day, to have as many lanes as you want. And, all-night bowling became a thing during World War II, during the all-night shifts in the aircraft plants. So, automatic pin spotter. It took like 15 years to invent this magic thing. There's stories about the first one being made with flower pots and Pendaflex folding machines. And people were experimenting with ways to do it. And finally came up with this thing that became so reliable that it just worked all day, all night. This guy's like the Maytag repairman, because they're all working great. And you could have 100 of them lined up. And literally, the one in New Jersey, or the one in Philadelphia had 116 lanes. And they become these vast, open, technology-fueled entertainment centers. And I love the kinetic motion of all the hands with the grease pencils writing scores above the people. There's no columns in this building. It's enormous. It's well lit. It has special functions and features like the sawtooth ceiling to deflect sound. And it's starting to get kind of fancy. And I don't know what all these buttons do, but they do something technological. And suddenly, who's there? Mom? The kids? People are seeing that this is maybe it's a family place. Maybe it's safe. And why don't we jazz it up a little bit with some high design? And so Brunswick and AMF both hire designers to come up with the new, Brunswick's Gold Crown line, which there is this incredible film, this promotional film that's just this breathless, hyperactive movie about how the Gold Crown line is going to change the world. But instead of a splintery wooden bench, you have this new fiberglass seating in these luxury designer colors. You have the new subway cluster ball return. And these plastic objects won design awards. Raymond Loewy and Donald Desky were involved with Brunswick for design in the 1940s. I had one of these in the exhibition, the scoring table with dual ashtrays and dual projectors. And the technology just kept making it easier and more pleasant to be there. This was an early attempt at automatic scoring, which required you to program your own vacuum tube and punch card computer system, which was not very popular and did not take off. But the technology was joined by the materials, that there's a bunch of new materials coming onto the scene in residential architecture and in commercial architecture. We've got the wonderful asbestos ceilings here that the Owens Corning Company was kind enough to share with me to cut down on sound. You've got this strange goo, this blue glittery goo, that I'm forgetting the name of it, that DuPont made, that you could pour over any shape of ceiling. So suddenly, you didn't need to have roofing, you just needed blue goo that you could pour over it from DuPont. There are new materials everywhere, like this Orlon and Acrylon, what we now call polyester, being used in clothing, in shoes, in bags. And these new colors, these new styles, these new, this entirely new glamorizing of what's happening at these places. And suddenly, they decide we're going to finally reach out to the other 50% of humanity with the Lady Brunswick. So making this blue ball was a huge advance. The first time that they tried to market to women. And boy, did it work, because women's leagues, children's leagues became huge business. The bowling magazine, Bowler's Journal, which by the way is still in business after 120 years, started doing entire issues based on architecture, devoted to the architecture of these new places. They always say that California was the birthplace of the new modern luxury bowling center. This is by my all-time favorite architects, Armé and Davis, down somewhere near LAX. Don't know how elaborate this really was, but you know that ball would have spun, and you know that pin would have had a billion scintillating lights all over it. And this illustration just kills me. I love it so much. But I mean, the range of architecture. This is Kenneth Wing in Long Beach. This is Arthur Froelich in Torrance. This one, the reviews call it handsome. So they're getting there. They're not quite to full-on Armé and Davis Googie yet until 1957-58, when Holiday Bowl opens in South LA on Crenshaw. This was restored as a Starbucks about 20 years ago. This is a 3D photo by Jack Laxter, which is pretty amazing. But finding a 3D color-rich photo of an architecturally significant bowling center took me 10 years, and I'm really good at this. Not to toot my own horn, but I used to be a picture researcher. I've been researching for the magazine for 25 years. I know where all the good stuff is, and this was really hard to find, because I was telling Barbara, I got this 99-year-old architect by the lapels, and I said, "Where's all your stuff?" And he said, "We never hired a photographer. We just took people to see our work." Okay, that would have worked, back then, but now that their work is all gone, it was so difficult to put this together. This one is the Safari Room at Plaza Lanes up in San Jose. It's another one in Northern California. But I mean, there's like this murderer's row of great LA architects working on this stuff. Paul R. Williams, Martin Stern, Killingsworth, A.Q. Jones, the head of the USC Architecture School, Armand Davis and Helen Fong. Just all trying it. And you know, like the way Frank Lloyd Wright built one gas station, they all tried to do one bowling alley. I'm sorry, bowling center is what they tried to call them to class it up. They all tried 1, 2, Armand Davis did 4, you know, it's doing pretty good. These guys, Powers, Daly, and DeRosa. Pat DeRosa, Austin Daly, and Gordon Powers. Gordon's the one I throttled him. They were the kings of this stuff, the kingpins of this stuff. And everybody sought them out because Covina Bowl made a lot of money. And he would go to these people, Gordon on the right there, and say, you know what would be great? Why don't you build a nice coffee shop? Oh, that sounds good. Why don't you do free child care? Well, okay, sure, you think that'll work? Why don't you put in a Las Vegas style showroom? Oh, if you think that'll make money, that's great. And he convinced them to do all that, like here at Covina Bowl, had all those things. And it made a lot of money. Here's a spectacular night noir shot of it from Life magazine. And you know, they're not happy. They're having a fight in that car. They got really good parking, but they're you know, like what's going on? I think that one of them is digging a hole for the other one in the desert somewhere. But this is the happy family out at Friendly Hills in Whittier. Here's again the one in San Jose, or in San Mateo. This one with the theme of the Canadian totem poles. And the owner thought that the native people of a certain region of Canada were very hospitable, and she liked that idea. Java Lanes in Long Beach is about Indonesian themed. This is the one in Country Club Lanes in Sacramento, which just kind of shows you they're not like simple buildings. They're incredibly complicated, and they're complicated architecturally, they're complicated structurally. This, what Alan Hess calls structural dynamic, you know, structural gymnastics rather, of these buildings is kind of off the charts. And it's like a crazy sampler platter of every kind of mid-century style you could have. And this one's in Parkway Bowl in El Cajon in San Diego, still open. This one in El Monte with these, like, they describe them as 80-foot masts shooting flames into the night. And this one had a Glockenspiel themed bar. But good God, that one in the middle has a flying saucer coming out of it. It's just absolutely incredible the way that they would pull you in with this design, with this architecture, with this excitement, and it's really worked on me. This is a wonderful illustration from Bill Sharmatz from a very snobby magazine called Horizon. And he wrote this article about bowling goes bourgeois. You know? These people, dressed as they are, looking at Willow Grove, the one in Pennsylvania. Here's the interior of one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where architect William Henry Ryan said he was inspired by the concrete bomb shelters he saw in World War II. This was restored as a community center and basketball stadium. This is the one in the South Bay in Redondo Beach, that's designed by A.Q. Jones and Frederick Emmons, who, again, he was the head of the USC School of Architecture. But this was the luxurious steak knife restaurant. So, you know, at home, the developer, Sidney Brody, has, you know, Miro come to his house and paint a mural. He collects Picasso and Giacometti. And so when we built his bowling alley, he hired A.Q. Jones to design it. And I think those are Billy Haynes chairs. It's supremely elegant. And the menus in these places are outrageous. I did a whole show for the culinary historians on the crazy, crazy food they tried to pawn off on people. It was not hot dogs. This is Chateau Lanes at 4th and Vermont, which my bowling club goes to once in a while, which still kind of has this floor, at least. You know, the cocktail lounge kind of floating above everything, in like a crow's nest. Here's AMF, the competitor. Here's AMF's version of the equipment. They're trying. It's not Brunswick equipment. But the themes of these places, you know, Tiki was a hugely popular one. This was the Kona Cove in West Covina by Armand Davis. This one is the coffee shop at Stardust Bowl in West Covina, which Sven Kirsten, the expert in all things Tiki, called an alien in the world of plastic and chrome. That it also speaks to like the dynamic of these kind of buildings where they use natural organic materials like terrazzo marble and flagstone, and space-age plastics, like right next to each other. The bars, the cocktail lounges, the restaurants, this one is in Long Beach. The theming, Aztec, tiki, fire, at these places. It became a place to kind of park your money and a kind of a great investment for people like pro ball player Gil Hodges. He was a Brooklyn Dodger, and there's some of his Dodgers memorabilia on the wall, who built this one in Brooklyn. This is an incredibly elegant one in Northern California by Goodwin Steinberg in Millbrae. This is the one that had the fashion shows on the marquee that you saw earlier. This is an artist named Irene Ligorio who painted that piece behind her, who was the director of the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco. And so when Powers Daly and DeRosa were building their center up there, they got this classy lady to come and consult to design the Magic Carpet Room and Futurama things. And all these places were filled with custom art for the bowling center, commissioned by a classy dame like that. And this is the one in, this is the Old English style Green Gable lanes in Phoenix, where a guy on a white horse would come pick you up at your car and escort you to the front door. A knight. This is in Inglewood. This was the Tropicana lanes. But I just love that capisce lamp and all the stone in the entry here. This was the one we saw in Crenshaw, which was Japanese themed. It was Japanese owned and Japanese themed. So above the bar, there was a sculpture of the Japanese islands in cork and brass and copper. This is the sign, which my friend John English salvaged when they demolished part of that place. Custom resin art with gold leaf inside of it with kanji characters on the right, and then Pidgin English spelling out sake bar. Sake bar. Here's another tiki from the Reseda lanes. Here's some incredible stuff by, I'm going to get his name wrong, I think it's Ken Meyer, who did these sculptures for the Beverly Bowling Center in Montebello. When this was gutted about 20 years ago, these went in the dumpster. And a couple of them got salvaged. Our friend Charles Phoenix had that one on the right there. And this is the original illustration for a mosaic at El Dorado Lanes on Sepulveda, which is still going strong. By Murray Large, who invented the not paint by number, but mosaic by number kits that were popular in the 50s. But you're hiring a real guy, a real artist, a real person to come out, or Irene Ligorio is, and design these spaces. They're all custom, they're all regional usually to the place that they're at. They're all themed with stories. This is the wonderful Gil Rosas, who gave me this picture of him performing at the Fiesta Bowl in Santa Barbara. He said every day when they were building it, I would show up and say, hey, I know a good lounge act if you're ever looking for a guy. And he ended up playing there for like 20 years. This is the most elegant picture, I think, like where it's trying to be James Bond on the lanes, and it's an ad from Seagram's, where this is like what they were all going for. They were all hoping this would just happen naturally out on the lanes. I don't know that it ever did, but it's something to aspire to for Seagram's. The guy in the white dinner jacket. This is a country club in Sacramento, which is still going strong. The Yosemite lanes with the organ player in the sunken pit there. And more tiki. But in the restaurant, let's get a celebrity chef. Let's get a guy who's on the TV, Mike Roy, who talks about food and drink and wine on TV, writes books about it. Let's get him to run the restaurant. Let's serve, baked Alaska in the restaurant. And they're all steak and lobster fine dining restaurants in these places. This is the Bahama Inn in Pasadena, which is now Bolero up on Fudo Boulevard. This is where, and Irv Noren, who was also a ball player who sunk his money into these places, was describing this room to me at 90 plus, remembering this room. And he didn't even believe it, describing his own place. And it had alligators inside. Like, oh, wow, Irv. And then, okay. This is Covina Bowl, my hometown favorite. This is an incredibly rare picture of an actual lounge in action. And here it is on New Year's Eve, where you might go and see like a young ingenue like Kitty Cover, perform, or the Salmas Brothers. And they were these lounge acts that were on a circuit between here and Vegas and Reno, and then back to all the lounges of bowling centers. Some of them were well known, some of them were not well known, some of them were Diana Ross and the Supremes performing at these places. Covina Bowl hires Mel Torme, and Mamie Van Doren is playing at Anaheim Bowl. What? It just doesn't seem real. It's so hard to believe that this really happened. This is the one in West LA, Culver City, called Kingpin Lanes. And then in my office every day, I get to look up at the hollow dead eyes of this Harlequin clown from the sign from the lounge at Kingpin Lanes, which is one of my prized possessions. And the musicians that played here would do like live albums. John Buzan was a regular at the Covina Bowl. Rusty Warren was the act at Anaheim Bowl, but also played at what's the big one in Boston, Tangle something or other? Tanglewood in Boston, would play these big esteemed venues all over the country, and then go do an album at the Anaheim Bowl. And it was 94-year-old Sid Croft that explained the double entendre of this album, because he's holding table knockers, which are a way of applauding without using your hands, because you're too elegant to use your hands. You table knock with these things. And it's a boob joke. Because Rusty Warren was lewd and crude and like Red Fox, like a female Red Fox going around telling all these women, march around, knockers up, like doing these shocking things in a very buttoned down era of 1961, doing this was pretty outrageous. But another bold LGBT trailblazer like Rusty was Troy Walker, who I Googled every single act I could find that ever played these places, and they were all, died in 1970, died in 1970, they're all gone. Troy Walker has a documentary premiering, and I'm like, he's around. And I called Troy, and we hit it off. I took him out to Pancakes, he's a great guy. And I ended up saying, hey, would you ever want to do another show? Would you ever want to be in a lounge again? And he said, of course I do, I'm in a restaurant, bring me out of here. And so I did, and we set up a show, we built out the lounge, he did his act, and it was a big hit. But these places were for the whole family. One guy told me, everybody in my family bowled on a different league. Pee-wee, bantam, senior, women, companies that you work for. Free childcare? At these places by maybe a registered nurse. This is Covina, this is New Jersey. Was a huge deal for new suburban moms stuck in these new tract houses out in the boonies, which had been orange groves a few months earlier. Kids, adults, seniors. Chief Halftown was like a TV cartoon guy, like Tom Hatton here in LA, if any of you remember him. But he would do this show, and he would have like meet and greets at the bowling center. Brunswick hired him to bring a crowd. So hundreds of kids would show up to meet Chief Halftown, and then he would teach them how to bowl. For teens, let's get Dick Clark. They hired Dick Clark to be their teen ambassador. This is Woodley Lewis, who had been an LA Ram, who, again, another one of these guys sunk their money into one of these bowling centers. This one in Compton, demolished about 5 years ago. But this became Skateland USA, and then it became like a rap club where Dr. Dre and Ice Cube and Eazy-E all started out. West Coast rap starts in a 1950s bowling alley. Bowling is on TV every night of the week for hours and hours with shows like Jackpot Bowling that Uncle Milton Berle here, Uncle Milty did. Every opening is hosted by some star from a Western. This guy from Iron Horse, Dale Robertson. Maybe you're going to have Jane Mansfield come and open your lanes. This is the one where she had a golden ball and a golden pin and a mink bowling bag and roll a strike, of course. 10,000 orchids for the ladies. This is Covina Bowl when they're trying to give away this car, and there were all these sort of giveaways and kind of scandals and such. Harold Lloyd still bowling into the 50s. And I got this great picture from Barbara Eden, who owned a bowling center, and said, I gave my ball to the Goodwill. Do you think it's too late to get it back and start again? Which is cute. But then for our last chapter, which is the fall and rise, we see how all of these, like I said, these dinosaurs lumber out and die on the vine. And It's a combination of many things. Most people attribute it to overbuilding. Some people attribute it to crime. This is the guy that was trying to get a liquor license for a place that didn't have one by bribing the state liquor commissioners. And you know, the liquor license bars where they made a lot of their money. But I mean, this is how I remember them, falling apart and decrepit, and I never got to see them fresh and new and beautiful. But they had all these ideas like, let's go teen. And they would have like a dance party in the parking lot for teenagers. One had a helicopter with some, you know, chubby checker type guy flew in. Let's go nude. You know, so this is the one down by the airport that went nude. There was this whole, you know, fighting the against the no nude servers years, which is a whole other book. But what I really remember is seeing them all die, seeing them all close, seeing them all demolished. Java Lanes in Long Beach. This is Willow Grove Park and Walt Disney's Celebrity Lanes in Denver. But now there are artifacts that live on, like the great sign from Premier Lanes at the Valley Relics Museum, the neon Thunderbird from Thunderbird Lanes of Ontario, is at the Ontario Museum of Art and Culture. The Hollywood Star Lane sign is in a private collection. Hopefully it'll come back someday. Remember that painting at the beginning of the Sepulveda Bowl? Here it is as a Ross Dress for Less, restored. Is it a win?
Better than tearing it down.
Better than tearing it down. Here's Holiday Bowl on its way to becoming a Starbucks. Here it is as a Starbucks. When Covina Bowl closed, we got the original MC's son. The original MC was no longer with us. Took him out. We made this cake in the shape of Covina Bowl. We had a big, wonderful party there celebrating it, and then it closed. And then it became 6 billion condos, but with a beautifully restored section. The character-defining features. The restaurant is still there. The pyramid room is still there. The entry, the neon sign, look spectacular right now. If you go out to Covina, stop by Covina Bowl and look at it, it's amazing. And if anybody knows anybody looking to build a, I'm thinking food hall, rock climbing gym, I'm not sure what it is, available. This one was destroyed on the TV show Human Wrecking Balls, where 2 men threw themselves into this building until it fell apart. This is 300 Lanes in Phoenix, which is going strong as a Bolero. Bolero is the corporation in New York that bought AMF, Brunswick, Lucky Strike, the Pro Bowling Association, and every other aspect of bowling. And they run the industry now. Here's the exhibition I curated in 2014 with some of that Brunswick equipment and some neon on loan from Museum of Neon Art. But here's a current Bolero. I mean, they're nice, they're fine. You can get cocktails and food and with music, and it's a fun place to take a date. But you know, it's a whole new kind of thing. You know, I mean, the more things change, it's back to being like a place like that. You know, a clean, elegant, nice place. I don't know if elegant's the right word, but clean, exciting, nice place. And then I had this wonderful collaboration with the artist Hayden Evans, who did this wonderful map for us of all the remaining Googie bowling centers in America that you can go visit today. Take a road trip. This is Bowlarama. Thank you very much.
This is Bowlarama. So we do have some time for questions. So does anybody have a question?
I just have a comment. I think
Sure.
it's really wonderful that there's, I mean, you can laugh about it and stuff, but it was a great community thing. There's nothing community anymore, nothing community.
Yeah.
And that was a great, I think coming out of World War II, there was such, that, you know, that horror and devastation, there was such a need. That's why the suburbs started. You needed a need for being together, having fun, not having stress. And I think that's a perfect example of it. And I think it's really sad that it's not, I mean, your whole neighborhood could go and have some fun instead of just sitting around in your backyard.
And it's like $1.
Huh?
And it's like $1. And it's open all night.
I think it was a wonderful community thing. I mean, yeah, you can laugh at it, but it served a bigger purpose than anything we have now.
I agree, 100%.
I think I really enjoyed this a lot, for historically and just for fun.
Thank you.
It was great.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I've never heard of the Valley Relic Museum. Could you say a little bit more about it?
It's an airplane hangar filled with artifacts from the San Fernando Valley in mid-20th century. There are neon signs, there are costumes, there are wardrobe pieces, there are like stuff from movies, stuff from historic buildings. He's really into BMX bikes. There's a whole section on that. There's pinball machines. It's an odd place. It's like a personal museum. And you can rent it for like a birthday party where, you know, they do a lot of special events and things there. But it's fun.
Where's it at?
It's, they call it Van Nuys, but it doesn't really feel like Van Nuys. It's the far west side of Van Nuys.
What is it again?
Valley Relics, R-E-L-I-C-S.
I can spell
Maybe I
Maybe
mumbled.
not everyone can.
Susanna, did you
Other
ask?
questions?
I thought I saw Susanna say something. Did you raise your
I
hand?
didn't raise my
Oh, I'm sorry.
Elizabeth.
Wasn't there either a book or an idea some years ago called Bowling Alone, which was the very same point that my friend is making, that the community of bowling has dispersed, and now people are more alone.
Well, that author, which we cite in this book, he talks about the end of all kinds of social things, like women's clubs, for example. You know, this was a women's club for 100 years.
They're making a comeback to women's clubs.
And then they left. But like fraternal organizations, and everything, you know, like for example, some friends of ours who were very community oriented restarted the Anaheim Halloween Parade. So it's a fun thing for kids, but it turned into this huge community festival. And they get hundreds and hundreds of people, probably thousands of people, to come down there and resurrect this old thing that brought people together. They also started a thing called Green Bird, which is something from Japan where they go around and pick up trash in the neighborhoods and meet people. I don't know, there are young people, I think, that are trying to reconnect with the world, the real world around them, but at the same time, you've got so many distractions, from this thing in my pocket, which is constantly vying for my attention. I went to a film on Monday night where the director said that 50% of his movies are going to be AI and screen-oriented. Oh, okay. I mean, there's multiple paths to go down. But obviously community is super important to me, and the bowling center is Charlene had a question?
Oh, just sometimes you say it, but partially in its comment to what you guys are saying, that the bowling is still the #1 participatory sport. And in fact, when all the bowling alleys started getting demolished, the number of bowlers was actually increasing, and so they were, you know, shoved into smaller.
The number of bowling centers peaks around 1962, and the number of bowlers peaks around 1980. But yet, Charlene is right. The U.S. Bowling Association says that the official group says that bowling remains the #1 participatory sport in America in 2025. Because I guess if you go to a football game, you're not going to grab the ball, but if you go to a bowling alley, you're probably going to
Grab the ball.
Grab the ball. Yeah.
I have a comment on that.
Susanna?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people now are fans. You got the Swifties, you got the Little Monsters, you got the Army, which is BTS. So all these big rock groups or small, like the single singers, they have these fan clubs now, and they become community to themselves. So it's communities kind of meeting
But
differently.
it's a sedentary.
Well, they go to the show, so they get to
It's
meet.
sedentary, looking at someone else. It is not participatory. It's it's group,
Yes.
but it's isolating.
Yes.
So it's not.
I suppose Comic Cons would fit into that.
Yes, all of those. There's
Yeah.
fans of everything now, so that's kind of,
Yeah, but
become
the
part
thing,
of the new community.
it's beyond being a fan. It's actually talking to people, being with people, doing things, just having some fun. It's not being a fan of a particular thing.
no,
It's
the
being a fan
fans
of your
get
community.
together. They meet, I've just seen some documentaries on some of these, fan club, like, actions, and the people love each other, and they are community, but they don't live next to each other,
I think they're finding community in different ways than
Yes.
we found
I think
community
that's
They do
20,
anything.
30,
It's just
40 years
focused
ago.
on a thing rather than me and my neighbors. me and my neighbors this week, me and my neighbors.
Well, they,
We used to have block
I think it's a
parties all
different
the
kind of
time.
community, right?
It is a different
They are
kind of
doing
community.
things
They do
together, they are
costumes.
meeting, they are sharing.
yeah, they're doing
Their
different, in a
passion.
different way.
Book clubs are similar. That's true. That's why we're here.
Yeah,
That's
that's
part of the
Support your local book club in California.
Heritage Society.
We have a question in the back.
Yes, your photographs are spectacular.
Thank you so much. I worked really hard to find the best ones.
Yes, they're amazing. You should take this to an architecture school. I've never seen an explosion of design
Yeah.
like this. And you put it all in one study.
Did you take it up to Art Center?
I haven't done it. If anybody has a contact there, I'd love to present it for them. The best pictures in the book came from Life magazine.
Really?
In 1958, Life did a story about luxury bowling, and they sent out their best guy because, I mean, it's so artful and it's so beautiful. We could only afford to use 15 of them, but they're very pricey. But you know, Adrian and I, you know, paid for this out of our own pocket. You know, and licensing pictures is incredibly expensive, and so I was so excited whenever I found one. I was like, yes, of course, take my money. This is great. It needs to be in the book. And so, you know, the few that were out there, every one of them was golden because there were just so few to begin with.
Can you say a little bit about the future of bowling?
The future of the game is bright. The future of these buildings is not so bright. I made a spreadsheet of 1,000 mid-century bowling centers that existed in California. Less than 5% of them are still standing.
I mean, the advent of like Wii bowling, right? The electronic.
Sure,
game.
electronic games.
There's lots of arcades now that have like a ball where you roll the ball and you bowl on a
Virtual
lane.
is big, but I mean, there is a whole new, in the last 5 years, a whole new realm of luxury bowling. Like at Downtown Disney, there's Splitsville. In Topanga Mall, there's Pinstripes. Lucky Strike is at the height of the, you know, Bolero. Bolero had 3 different tiers. You know, the highest one, I think, was Bolmore. Anyway, there are, and the one at the Hollywood Roosevelt, go to that one. That's a weird one. That's a 1920 style one where there's a guy with a little snap brim newsboy cap who keeps score on a chalkboard for you. Highland Park Bowl is a 1920s one that was restored a couple of years ago, which Montrose is there. But Highland Park is pretty amazing. Montrose is weird. Montrose is weird. There's holes in the wood, and you don't really have to play the game. They just kind of. I got a lot of issues with Montrose, but it's pre-war. So anything before World War II, I kind of put in the saloon basket, and anything after I put in the Bowlarama basket. Sure, one more for
One of
Charlie.
the issues is that the pre-war ones, because they didn't have the pin spotters and the automatic pin setters, they like were smaller, right? So they're taking up a smaller footprint, so it's easier.
You couldn't have more than 8 lanes.
To, you know, keep going through time, because there's not such a premium on the land. The huge ones were so huge that there could be like 50 condos on them or whatever it is on this land that one bowling.
They all talked
So
about
there's
4
more
acres of free
fresh-
parking.
And in fact, every single period
Going back to
that,
finding
Yeah.
real estate goes up, the bowling alleys go down,
Right.
and all of the times, like even in the 70s was one of the times.
Yeah,
that it-
I want to give a ephemera shout out. If you look on the right of the screen, that is the sticker that I tracked down. Anyway, I was very proud of that one. Like, how does a sticker survive? How does any ephemera survive? How did I find napkins from these places? Carla?
So what about bowling centers all over the country? Most of this is like California. What about East Coast or?
They were very much built out before World War II. And so, and you still see places in saloon basement type situations. You still see the 8 or 10, 6-lane houses. The oldest one in the country is Holler House in Minnesota, which is, I think, 4 or 5 lanes. So they had all that stuff. Here, there were very few bowling centers in Los Angeles before this period. Santa Monica Pier had one in the 1880s that lasted into the turn of the century. Near the Pike, I think it was on Long Beach. There's very, very few here. And so we also had all this huge expansion into the suburbs. There was all this big, cheap land here. And also, they convinced them to spend the money here. And most places, with the exception of Texas, they did some beautiful ones in Texas that were big and lavish. Missouri became a center of it. But everybody in the press at the time said these are all California-style centers. And so they were emulating what we were doing in LA and the Bay Area. But, I mean, and the ones that exist are, you know, like when I travel, I go looking for Googie buildings, and because of, like, the basic thing is, the weather is different. So you can't have a thin, flimsy, lightweight thing in a place where it snows. You can't have just a sheet of glass between you and the elements. And so we could have that here. So all of the Googie architecture is very light and is very easy to ruin architecturally. You do any slight tweak or change and like it's gone. But I mean, in that map, that cartoon map, are all the best ones remaining around the country. And most of them are here.
Did you make a little printout of that?
You can take a picture of it out of the book if you want, or buy a book. But yeah, but I've been planning a website for a long time, but I'm not very good at that.
Well, as someone who bowled on a league when I was a kid, my whole family did, back on the East Coast. I feel like every time we do a program here, I'm telling you a little bit more about my childhood. It's getting weird. We bowled all of the time. It was like every weekend we were going to tournaments and bowling, my two brothers and I and my whole family and our neighbors and everybody who was part of our church. And it was a big thing. So this was terrific to hear and to remember back of what that was like. Looking forward to looking at the book. And Chris is going to sign books in the back.
I'd be glad to, yeah.
Books are for sale. They're going to be in the back. I've already got mine. But we're going to wrap up now, and I'm going to ask you to join me in thanking our speaker.
And you could keep your applause going for yourself. Thanks everyone for coming this evening. We hope to see you next month here for the next book club program. You can sign up for any of our programs in the emails that you're getting, or you can email me. I'm Kevin at BCC Books. I'll sign you up. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you again soon.